When you overthink everything, every decision, every possibility, every outcome, it's very easy to think that your mind is the problem, that your brain is overactive. But that's actually not true. Something much deeper has been disrupted, and until you see it, nothing's gonna change. It makes so much sense to see overthinking as something's wrong with my mind because that's where it happens. You're thinking literally constantly. You replay conversations obsessively, you imagine different outcomes, you try to anticipate what might happen, you catastrophize whenever possible. You lie awake at night while your brain keeps going. And the sad irony is that the more you think, the more uncertain you feel. The more you obsess over details, the more confused you become. As a society, we've learned to live from the neck up, so the signals coming from your head are the strongest, the most legible. So it makes sense to see overthinking as a mind problem, but that's actually not the case. Because here's the paradox. If overthinking were just a problem of the mind, you would easily be able to solve it at the level of the mind, and you can't. You cannot think your way out of overthinking. If anything, the more you think, the worse it gets. You can't force yourself to just stop thinking. The more you do that, the more obsessed you become. You tell yourself to calm down, to think less, but that doesn't work either. Because the moment you try to stop thinking, you start thinking about the fact that you're thinking. So the whole thing just loops. And the more effort you put into solving it, the more stuck you become, which should tell you something. If the problem were really in your mind, then the more thinking should bring you closer to a solution. But it doesn't. It makes things worse. So if overthinking isn't a mind problem, what is it? The real cause of overthinking is disconnection. Disconnection from yourself, disconnection from the flow of life, disconnection from what's real. First, let's look at disconnection from yourself. When you're not in touch with your own inner sense of direction, with what actually feels right to you question everything you encounter. You try to figure it out, to calculate, to analyze, to plan, but there's nothing underneath that planning to help orient you. There's no clear signal, no inner authority, or sense of self. You don't trust what you feel, so every interaction, every decision becomes a test you don't know the answer to. Second, we're increasingly disconnected from the flow of life. I won't go into it fully here, but by the flow of life, I mean the immediacy of life itself, what Deleuze calls pure life. That is to say, the most direct, unmediated experience of being alive, something we've largely collectively lost access to. So now, instead of trusting our intuition, we delay. Instead of responding, we evaluate. Instead of acting, we think about acting. We stay one step removed from our own life, watching, simulating, rehearsing instead of living. And this has become the norm. You think about living instead of experiencing life directly. You observe your life as if you were a spectator of it, not an actor, not a participant. Third, when you're disconnected from yourself and the flow of life, you also become disconnected from what's real. When you overthink, your attention shifts away from what's in front of you and into possibilities, scenarios, projections, what ifs. You're no longer responding to reality. That's what happens when you overthink. You're responding to mental constructions, to abstractions, to simulations of hypotheticals. Those have no limits. There's always another angle, always another doubt, always another scenario to consider. And the more disconnected you are, the more you resort to thinking to fill the gap. It's a constant loop that we've gotten very used to that is also very hard to break. This disconnection is not random and it's not just a personal problem, it's a civilizational one. The environment you're living in was consciously, strategically designed to constantly pull you away from what's real. That is to say, pull you away from yourself and from direct experience. Why? Because a population stuck in overthinking, a population stuck in mind loops is easier to control, easier to pacify, easier to monetize. We're surrounded by noise, information, opinions, stimuli, more noise than your system can actually process. So your attention gets fragmented, pulled in different directions. You don't know what to focus on anymore. At the same time, you're also constantly exposed to other people, their lives, their choices, their standards. People advertise it on social media. So instead of orienting yourself from within, you start comparing yourself to others and orienting from the outside. You start comparing, adjusting, second guessing. This is a constant loop that goes on 24/7, even when we sleep. Over time, this becomes the norm. You learn to rely on what's visible, what's validated, what's already been approved, instead of what you actually feel. And the logical consequence of that is that our sense of direction weakens. And when there's no clear signal, thinking takes over. It's either thinking or nothing because you can't feel yourself anymore. So if overthinking doesn't come from your mind and thinking can't solve it, then the way out is not more thinking. The way out is contact, aliveness, life force. The way out is reestablishing contact with what's real. That is to say, with yourself, with your body, with your immediate experience. Because when you're in contact, you don't need to think as much. You can just feel life itself. There's a sense of direction that comes from somewhere deeper. Something feels right or it doesn't, and that's enough to move. You stop second guessing your intuition. Of course, this doesn't mean that you stop thinking altogether. It means that thinking is no longer your primary way of navigating life, your primary way of exerting control onto a reality that's largely uncontrollable. So instead of trying to solve everything in your head, when you reestablish contact, you start paying attention to what's actually happening in front of you, in the here and now. You notice what affects you, what feels alive, what feels heavy. You let things land. And from there, everything begins to shift. Not in the name of abstraction, not in the name of spectacle, not in the name of simulation, but in the name of reality, of aliveness, of pure life. Your decisions become simpler. You become simpler. Your personality becomes simpler. Your actions become more direct. Your relationships start requiring less explanation, and not because you figured everything out, but because you're no longer disconnected from your own experience. That's what reduces overthinking, not better thoughts, but a different rapport to your own life. When feeling alive becomes your reference point, you stop relying so much on thinking and start following the sensations of your own life. You don't need a better mind, you need access to what's real. Hey, thank you for watching. If what I'm sharing resonates with you, make sure you hit subscribe to be notified when new videos are released. And if you want to go deeper, I share longer reflections, frameworks, and updates in my newsletter. The link is below. This channel is a growing body of work about restoring aliveness in a world that quietly trains you to live at a distance from your own life.